And we are live in the Storycraft Cafe. Welcome to our weekly check in for the Write a Novel with Dabble in 60 Days challenge. This is week number 5, I believe, for our check in. And up until now, we have been talking about the planning of our novels, and planning time is over, and the drafting begins in earnest. I had a very successful day yesterday. I pretty much took most of the day off of work stuff and focused on grinding out words, and I got about 5,400 words yesterday. I think it was 300, 400, whatever it was. And
Woohoo!
in hopes that because life always happens, sometime during the month, there might be a day where I just don't get to write it all, and I've generated a little pad for myself. Hopefully that doesn't happen, and I just wind up at the end of the month with more words than we needed. But who knows? But they, I have a pad for now. Anyway, but I got I set my daily word goal in Dabble, and that over on the right hand side of your menu bar with the icon of the three little graph lines there. If you click there, then you can get to your daily goals. And I set my daily goal for 1,700 words. I think it was. It comes out to 1,666.3 if you take 50,000 words divided by 30 days. That's what you come up with. So I set my goal just a touch higher than that, just to round it off. And I'm doing fairly well right now. 14%, as it Dabble now tells me that I'm 14% into my novel on day
Yay!
2.
That's
I'm going to take that
awesome.
as a victory. But yeah,
Hey, Hank,
uh,
can I
yeah.
have some of your words?
Hey, I'll share.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That's so kind. Thank you.
How are you doing, Lauren?
Well, you said planning was over, but I guess my desk didn't get the memo because I'm still in planning land, and
Yeah,
I'm there. It's brewing. It's still there, and I think I might be there for at least a couple more days.
yeah.
Honestly, yeah,
You know what? Stuff happens.
it
They
does.
goals are lofty, and things for us to set our eyes toward, but sometimes we have to give ourselves a little grace and fudge on some of the lines. But it's kind of a daunting task for you to take a world someone else constructed, then you deconstruct it and come up with a story in that already constructed world. Are you finding that to be more difficult or more time consuming?
Well, yeah, definitely on the time consuming, and I'm ironically wearing the right T-shirt today. It says, "Hold on, let me overthink this," because that is what I'm in the middle of doing. Like I said, I've been trying to collect an encyclopedia, trying to make a map. I found the Discord servers for the fan groups, and these fans are so excited about this series. They are rabid, and they've got a lot of the details sorted and figured out themselves. And I'm like, oh my goodness, these fans have such high expectations. Oh
If you could
boy,
talk
I
one of them
cannot
into
let them
creating
down.
a if you could talk one of those fans into creating a wiki for you, that
I I actually tried like weeks ago. I was like, "Hey guys, anyone have a wiki around here?" And one guy was like, "Yeah, I'm already thinking about making it." I'm like, "Really? You are? That's really fascinating. Tell me more about that." So the idea is out there, but it hasn't been done. But what I am doing is on my end, I'm taking notes. I'm listening to the books. And I'm sketching things out. I'm using Dabble a lot to organize these notes and to figure it all out. But I've got like three major plot threads in my head, and I'm kind of mentally exploring them in,
yeah.
building on them, seeing where they go. But I need to have more of it figured out before I get to writing.
So
So
these
that's where I'm
tell me
at.
about these three different plot threads. Are they three different protagonists and different journeys that each of them are on? And
Right.
will intertwine at some point? Like,
Right.
what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I've got my main character who's from before the my story began, certainly, but even before the series began. And I know that she's got a conflict that she carried into book 1, and now we're at book 3.5.
Okay.
So she's got a backstory. And today, the words I did get down was I was like, well, let's just let this character talk. So I just came up here, sat on my laptop, and just started, writing and kind of letting her talk and tell her story. But I know it's backstory. It's backstory to figure out where we are when the scene of my book starts getting going. Um, but to understand, what my villain is up to and how my villain's choices are going to affect my main character. I gotta see what my villain's been doing too, and what its motivations are, like we talked about last week,
Right.
and how its actions start to affect the main character and the cast and crew. And then what is this cast and crew? I've got to build that out too. So yeah, just a lot of building. And one thing kind of leads to another with these characters and with the plot. But I really need to like sit down and do it. Just do it.
Speaking of just letting your characters talk, I have a tendency when I'm writing to when I kind of discover plot points, I want to move through those plot points kind of quickly,
Mm,
and I wind up losing a bit of the character depth because I'm just moving them through the world. And one thing that I've consciously done this time is when I have two characters in a room, I just let them talk and
mm,
just slow down and not rush through the scene to get to the next point. And one thing that is kind of exciting for me because I planned this novel more than the next, I'm not so much worried that I'm going to forget where I'm taking these characters because I think that was one thing that I was always scared of in the past is, well, I'm going to forget this great idea that I have. So now I already know what that next great idea is because I've got it written in my plan, so I know where I'm going. I could just calm down
mm.
and let them be the characters, and that is so much fun for me right now. I'm loving that.
Oh, right. Well, fun. That's where I was going with this. So
Yeah,
I'm on the Discord server, right?
yeah.
And the
Fun
fans
is
are
supposed to be part of this process, by the way.
they're so detail oriented in figuring out the lore of this series, and I'm really impressed. And I go to my editor in chief, and I'm like, "What? These fans, their expectations are so high. How am I supposed to like entertain them?" And he said, "Don't worry about it. Just have fun. Just have fun." So yeah, that's what I need to do.
Thank you,
Um,
Kate. That was a great
yeah,
comment.
Kate said, Hank, that's awesome. I've always been afraid I would get too into dialogue, but this time I am calming down and letting them talk. It is fun.
Yes, it is fun. It's and writing is supposed to be fun. I mean,
Right.
why did we get into this in the beginning?
Mm,
Because we wanted to tell fun stories that someone would have fun reading. Sometimes it's easy to lose sight of what your first love with storytelling was, and that can get away from you when you get caught up in word counts and all this stuff. Remember to
yes.
slow down and have fun.
Have fun.
Ian, Patrick, and dragons and people dying. What
Yeah.
what in the world's going on?
So I decided to start off with my prologue, and I'm going to have it from the perspective of one of the druid characters. And I was like, well, I could do a short and sweet little kind of introduction, but I was like, I'm gonna have fun with these characters. I'm gonna let them just kind of breathe on their own. I locked myself in a spare bedroom with the lights off and completely devoid of any music and sound. And I was like, all right, let the voices in my head do the talking for me for the next few hours. And what I found were uh, I needed a compelling way to really sell this story. And what I did was I without giving too much away, I just started a whole bonfire party with just these good old folks in the middle of a druid grove, and then I immediately ruined their night because
What?
I did do that. So some of the dragons can turn invisible. I found,
Oh,
yeah, and I really just had this kind of horror montage after that. It was a lot of
Sam
fun.
says how many people are going to die today?
At least one,
mm.
at least one today, possibly two.
In the
I'm not
li-
trying to go like George R. R. Martin right off the bat because like it's very important to me. But like you build the relationships with characters, but like you also have to let some red shirts die in order to up the stakes. So it's kind
I'm glad you brought that up because that's a very I feel like this is a side tangent that deserves a little exploring
of
because we all understand the concept of a red shirt. You know, if you go back to Star Trek, you've got the guys in the red shirts, and they're you can always tell who's going to die. They're the expendable ones, and you'd never kill off someone. You never kill off any of the core cast of characters because that's what viewers show up for each week to watch. So you have these dispendable, these
Dispensable,
expendable.
expendable.
I just don't you love how I just smashed those two words together? These expendable characters that show up each week. That if you need some tension in the scene, just kill one of them.
yeah,
Except that George R. R. Martin comes along and he takes people that are his main protagonist and he just slaughters them. Um,
Yeah,
how do you feel about but because that is a way to subvert um reader expectations for sure if you kill the people that your readers care about, and that is a delicate balancing act because if you kill the people that people show up to read about, then what do you have left? You know, how do y'all have thoughts on that? I don't have a solution to that. I'm not I'm not leading the conversation somewhere.
mm,
I really want to hear what you guys think about that.
so I am planning one major character death aside from the red shirts. You know, there's one plot motivated death. I won't say who because that would kind of cut some of the tension from the story. I feel like that particular death is necessary for the plot to unfold. I do think that just murdering a character just because you've written yourself into a corner or you just don't know what to do is lazy writing. And if George Martin wants to talk to me about that, yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. I so I'm actually planning on a character dying too, and it's actually to get kind of an emotional response out, like like I love Tale of Two Cities. One of the main characters dies in A Tale of Two Cities too, and it just like it's just so gutting
Yeah.
where where the book is going, where the themes are going, but it kind of like has to happen. Same thing with like the Crucible, right? The main character dies in the Crucible, and that sort of has to happen. So like I'm open to the muse taking it in another direction, but I feel like this story and where the character arc is going, that this is going to come down the way. And yeah, tension build. My experience when I was reading the first three books of Game of Thrones is like I want to put myself in the main character's shoes, right? I want to kind of get lost in the world, see the world through their eyes, and kind of like follow along. But to do that, I got to get emotionally invested in a character. And if they keep on dying or like going evil because
Right.
good guys always finish last and the only way to win and to get ahead is if you cheat and kind of give over your soul, that's the way to actually have power. That's the way to overcome in the world, and to see that change. Then you slowly get like dead inside towards. I got dead inside towards the characters and stopped kind of hoping for them and rooting for them because they either just died because they're loser good guys who get cut off by the people who are willing to cut those corners, or they become evil themselves and then they're able to kill other people, and you just kind of for me, I tapped off that connection to the characters. So it lost all the fun of reading the books at all for me personally.
Well, and if all the characters are just evil, that that's another hurdle altogether. Someone mentioned grimdark, basic bog witch. I'm killing lots too, but it's grimdark, and that's always the struggle for me with grimdark is if you go too dark, then if you don't allow your readers a glimmer of hope that there's something to hope for, um, is it just an exercise in futility? I don't know. That's I love people that can pull that off well and keep
Mm.
readers engaged, but um, I don't know that I can do that.
Well, there's other kinds of enjoyment out there. Like people read. I remember as a kid, I read Goosebumps,
Yeah,
and the Goosebump books often don't have any kind of good characters or whatever. Like you might have some morally neutral people, but the fun in it is the excitement and the tension of, is this puppet going to kill me? Or is he easily going to come after me? So there's a different kind of fun in grimdark books and in books like Goosebumps, but that's for kids. But so there's other kinds of novels too. Um, so maybe in those kinds of novels, since you're going for a different kind of fun, you make different choices. Now, as an editor, I have another question about characters dying, and that is maybe this is not for the first draft stage at all. So maybe we should talk about this later on, and we can shelve it. But how do you treat a character death when like someone just died? You can write the scene and then move on, and then what's the emotional impact for the reader? Like, we just lost a character. So like, how do you treat a character's death and give it the, I don't know, the solemnity, the sorrow that kind of deserves, but not go overboard and not get boring? I don't know.
right.
Not
And
skip over it, but still.
And do you provide your reader with a chance to mourn that
Yeah.
death? And that it's I guess
How?
if you're going to kill a character um that is that important to the story, then their death should mean something, and it should mean something for the story. Especially like when in Game of Thrones, when Ned Stark is killed in book one, that means something for the story.
Right.
That topples six books later. That this is something that carries through the world, and you think that George Martin is just being you know uh, a meanie in the beginning by killing off a character that you love, but it really does have implications that kind of go through the world. And I guess if you're just killing off characters to just be killing them off and their deaths don't matter to the story, I think maybe that's the place where that you have to figure out, is this death going to matter?
Yeah.
And
Well,
doesn't the character deserve for their death to matter?
yeah. So think through how it can matter and how it can affect, ripple effects later. And also probably in that moment as you're writing the prose, to create that tone, to create the sadness, to create the anguish. But also just the fact that we're talking about his book and his example on the show, and it does keep on coming up on this podcast. I know because
Yeah,
it's a fantastic example, tells you that he did something right. Right. He got us emotionally that years after I read this book, you know, years after we read it, we watched the series, we're still thinking about it, and
right.
some of us are still salty about it. Like that's good writing if it gets in you like that.
Yeah. Ian, what are you thinking about the the weight of deaths in your book? Are you treating some of them differently than others? Are there red shirts? Are there expendable characters? Does every character death mean the same thing and carry the same weight?
Um, no, I would say no. Prologue has like six red shirts that die. I've named them, but I'm going to go back and draft two and really flesh them out to make the deaths more meaningful. But as of right now, they're just red shirts. They're just a way for me to get the story built, and then I can fine tune it later. There is one character death I'm working on right now. I'm actually trying to pour more into it, and that death will serve as a primary motivator for the rest of the plot, so that one will hold a lot more weight. And then there will be another death 2/3 of the way through the book, and that'll be like the driving force for the climax. So how can I make a compelling story if only a couple of people die? I've got to up the stakes. There's got to be more red shirts. The fun part is describing how it happens. um, do I go too crazy with it or not? So to answer your question, it just depends on the plot of the story, I guess. Yeah.
We, as a kid who had grandparents that were farmers, one thing that I learned as a little kid was you never name animals on the farm because when you have to eat Walter, that's going to be difficult. So maybe it's not the same as naming your red shirts, but you know.
I grew kind of attached to one character yesterday. I named him Kieran, and I was like, I like Kieran. And then 3 pages later, I was like, oh no, Kieran's dead. And I'm like, I can't get sad about that. I don't want to.
Are you gonna change his name?
Probably.
Karen's such a great name. You are writing your book for your students too. Like
Pretty
they're
much.
part of like the audience that you're writing to. Are you bringing them into your cast of characters? Any of the ones that you're redshirting?
Well, I would feel bad about redshirting my kids.
Yes.
Seventh graders, is that right?
7th graders. I have told them, you perform well on tests, you do good behavior. I'll name a character after you. And I have a surprising and somewhat alarming number of kids who are like, please make me into an evil dragon.
Oh.
I'm like, okay. I got this one kid named Tim. He's like, I would like to be the evilest, meanest dragon. I'm like, Tim, you're 4 feet tall. Okay. So, but my plan is like there'll be an arena scene, and they'll be like, behold the unbearably mighty Tim, and this tiny little lizard pops out. So that's one example of that. I don't feel like it would be appropriate or polite to make them a red shirt though. But I will like make a nodding allusion to it or something. Yeah.
Well, I know the authors do it. In Keystroke Medium, we've got some authors who redshirt each other, and they're just very careful to inform the other author that the death was particularly gruesome. And it was as gruesome and gory as they could possibly make it. Very creative in the way that you died. So there could be writer's juice in this.
I've seen some authors that do like Kickstarter projects, and one of the levels that when you donate enough money to this Kickstarter is that the author will kill you in any manner that you want to be killed. People pay for this.
Wow.
I've seen that happen numerous times, and people just love being brought into stories, even if it's for nefarious ends, I guess.
Galaxy's Edge, our insiders are often named as characters, but the ones that I can think of off the top of my head were all other Legionnaires.
Yeah.
Right, including some main characters like the Order of Centurion book, Wash, one of the greatest heroes in the cast. He's a fan.
Oh, that's so awesome. That is so awesome. Tell Jason to call me the next time or to email me the next time you talk to him, please. I want to get him on a show soon to talk about writing. Anyway, that's a side comment.
Which show? This show? Because this would be fun. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. Anyway, that's beside the point. Yesterday, like I said, I had this torrent of words that came out because I had been holding back the flood waters, for a month and not writing. And I knew exactly how I wanted to open this book, and I knew exactly what the prologue was going to look like. And stuff came out, 5,000 some odd words. And then today my writing goal was 1,700 words, and I had to put those words in a headlock and drag them out kicking and screaming. Um, is that what do you guys do for daily motivation? Like when you, especially in a month like NaNoWriMo, where you have to write every day. There's not a whole lot of options for saying I'll just catch up tomorrow, because if you do that too many times, you won't catch up. You will fall behind. So what keeps you motivated? And
Crippling.
I'd love to, anybody in the audience, I'd love to hear what keeps you motivated.
I don't know. Motivation won't help me because the words are either there or they're not. So, kind of like I'm sitting down, I'm trying to get in the zone. I'm trying to think of my characters. I'm trying to let them talk. I'm trying to think of the scene and just start, one sentence after another. And then if I get stuck in that scene and I don't know what happens next, then I'll jump ahead to the next scene that I do know what happens. And I'll just write that scene. Maybe it's a few chapters later. That's fine. The point is to write. Other tactics I've used in the past is to write in the same place. That helps, and not all over the house.
Yeah.
Also, you can get soundtrack, like a particular soundtrack that's like your writing zone music, and then just hearing that music kind of puts you in the flow. Some authors, when they're really stuck, they'll just find another book and just start typing up the page. It's not their words. They're not trying to copy the other person's style, but just the act of typing out words kind of untaps the faucet a little bit. Gets, like with the old pumps that you'd have to prime, you pour a little
Yeah.
water in and then you pump it and then the water comes out. So just prime your muse with a little bit of water, with using someone else's words, or by reading your own words, or whatever it takes, and then just kind of get going.
Sean Connery used that trick in Finding Forrester with a
Oh,
young man he was mentoring. He gave him a story that he had written and told him to start typing it, and then when his words came, just let
yeah.
his words flow in place of the previously written words, and that was a great motivator for him. Fred said his motivation is yet to be determined. I get that. I mean, we're only day two. We're talking lofty goals on day two, but you know,
Yeah.
you got to talk about them at some point. Oh, Ian, what's keeping the wheels turning for you?
Crippling anxiety. And that I'll lay down in bed and I'm like, I don't have enough words written. I'll take a deep breath and I'll just get up, like, let me grab the computer. And
Oh, good.
my wife's like, it is 9:30. I was like, I know. And let me be clear. The words today, I only have 206 of them, and they are not good words. Okay,
They
they're
don't
not.
have to be good words. This is
That's
first
the point.
draft.
You're right. They
First
just need to
draft.
be words. And
Yeah.
I have this little bar, this little progress bar for the daily goal, and I need that bar to get filled. Okay,
Uh-huh.
I need the pretty blue bar to be full. So I'm going to type until that gum bar is full. And if it's not great, I will go back and fix it tomorrow when I'm less tired. But I need to get at least something out because all of the ideas are just running around in here, and I'm not going to sleep tonight until I calm some of that down. So
Yeah.
I'm taking the mad scientist approach, I guess.
Keo said that she created a game for herself, created a bingo card and a board game as backup motivation. That's
Hmm.
anything that you can do to gamify. I'm a big fan of. That's awesome.
Yeah, we've
Uh,
had people do sprints, and you can do them with your friend. So you set a timer. I've got a kitchen timer. You set it for 25 minutes, then see how many words you can write in 25, and then rest for 5 minutes, and then just keep on going back and forth. 25 on, 5 off. And you can do it with a friend, and then kind of make it a competition if you want, or just do it against yourself and do it a competition. I do that with editing sometimes when I really need to focus, because it says during this 25 minutes, this is all I'm doing. Even if I'm staring at the screen, I'm not getting up for coffee. I'm not turning on the music. if it's on, it's on. But I'm not going to go leave my screen to go do that. I'm not checking Facebook. This is focused time. So that's a study technique. It's an editing technique for me, but it's also really great for writers just to get in the zone quicker.
We have a number of daily writing sprints at storycraft.cafe, where we have a group of people that get together and sprint. But Dabble has also created a website called wordsprints.org, and I put the link in the chat there. You can go to wordsprints.org and you can choose either a personal sprint just for yourself or a group, and you can invite different people to come do a sprint with you. And you can say personal and choose, I think it defaults to 15 minutes, anywhere from 5 minutes up to an hour, and then start now. And you have a place where you can type words, and the counter is counting down for you. And then when you're finished, you can export those words over to Dabble and keep it going. Just a fun little tool that we created just to help facilitate writing sprints and to kind of help gamify that between, um, between you and your writing group, which is just a fun little tool. So check that out, wordsprints.org. And it's free to use. You don't have to be a Dabble user. You can just go to it and then export those words to whatever word processor you use. And it works with everything.
Nice.
Yeah. Ian, you mentioned earlier that you turned off everything and where it was just you and the words. Um, or is that a process for y'all? Do you need silence? How do you set up your writing space?
That's actually new for me because normally I usually have earbuds or some kind of music on, but it just felt like sensory deprivation was what I needed yesterday.
Yeah.
Um, I'll usually have on some background music. Like if I'm doing a battle scene, I'll probably have some like the Witcher 3 soundtrack or something like that, or some heavy metal like Sabaton or whatever. Um, I don't know. I guess it depends, like what the scene requires. And yesterday was more of a somber, setting the tone scene. So I was like, okay, I need full attention. I'm about to start on a battle sequence pretty soon, so if you hear um, the windows warping because of power wolf blasting, that would be me. So again, it just depends on the scene.
Yeah. What about you, Lauren? How are you on background music or, setting the vibe for your writing space?
Yeah, I've got a YouTube video that's, I think it's like 3 hours long, and it's got this sort of, um, I don't want to, it's kind of tense music, sort of, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like doesn't have any words to it. And it's got like chimes and like a beat and stuff. I think I looked up like study intensity music or something like that, and it's just one of the study ones that I found. And I wrote one of my novels pretty much on that, and it did help. Just because getting in that flow state is the key for me.
Right.
So how to get into it, that was one little help.
Yeah. Um, I create a playlist in Spotify for each book that I write, and I just I add songs that are just random, completely random. They don't make any sense at all. Um, and they'll be all over this genre spectrum. I mean, just all over the place. And but what happens is my mind senses when that first song plays. Um, I train my brain to sense that and to know that it's now writing time. And when I hear that song, I go into writing mode. And that was something that took me a little bit to figure out, but it is, it's a little bit like Pavlov's dog, when
Yeah,
you hear the
yeah,
chimes, time to eat. Um,
exactly.
and it's so weird because every book it's a different song. And one book that I wrote, or it was a book with a sequel, and um Counting Crows' Untitled Love Song was the first song in the playlist, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the book that I wrote, which was about a murderous cult. And um, 200 BC. Um, but when I heard that song, I knew it was time to get into the book. It's so weird, but it's just it's what it is, and this time it's a song by 6 a.m. and it just kind of became the default it's writing time song. So who knows? Also, I've found that movie soundtracks are really good
Yes.
because if you listen to them through, from start to finish, there's a narrative flow to the music, because there are soft scenes, there are more dynamic scenes, there are heroic scenes, and then you kind of go through the ebb and flow of the journey that the characters are on in the movie, and the soundtrack, a lot of times will follow that, um especially action movies or
Mm.
thrillers or that sort of thing. That's a good trick that I've learned, and if you use Spotify or I don't use Apple Music, but I'm assuming you could probably do the same thing there. Just go to Spotify and look for movie soundtracks, and there's a million on there. That's super easy to get into. YouTube probably also.
Yeah, I might have to give the Lord of the Rings soundtrack a try.
Oh yeah.
All
Oh
that
yeah.
fantasy stuff.
Oh yeah. For sure. For sure. Um, Katie said, I have to have sensory deprivation, low light, no music, no noise at all, so that I can focus. I have a friend who writes, he has to have complete silence. And I always laugh at him because in our house, um, there were five kids and there was always something going on, and you just weren't going to get sensory deprivation. So good luck with that. Um, you figure out music that you like and turn it up loud to drown everything out. That's what Stephen King said in On Writing. He creates silence by blowing out everybody else. So which is kind of funny. But anyway, so what plans for this week? Lauren, I know that you're still um gathering all the troops in the
Right.
places where you need them. What is your next plan of action?
My next plan of action. Yeah, I need to gather all my plot threads together so I know what what my opening scene is going to be and where it's going to go from there. And I know the opening scene that might change, right?
Yeah.
Like you want it to be exciting, you want it to grab the reader's attention. But if you make this giant list of everything it needs to be, and then you never start writing, starting writing is the important thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I got 54 words today, 2 paragraphs.
I think I
But
told you on Facebook earlier that's better than 53.
it's something. It's a start,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
it's the start that I have. So just kind of go from there. And as the plot evolves, I might go back to that first chapter and change it. And as an editor, on the editor side, I've seen books that were better by cutting the first 4 pages. So maybe I'll end up writing pages and chapters that might not make it to the final draft, but at least I got the words out there and I got going.
Well, and what will happen a lot of times is, you think, well, they're wasted words if I cut them, but if they build the backstory in your mind
Right.
and make the characters more developed and the story more developed, then everywhere you go forward from there is going to be better because of those 4 pages. Even
Right.
if you cut them, even if they don't show up in the final product, they're there. They just might be in the history that's unseen, but they're there.
The effects are there. Yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. Ian, what's your plan for this week?
I need to get Patrick into Ireland this week. That is my main narrative goal.
Mm.
Getting him from point A to point B, and then we'll tweak the details later. I'm just trying to get him from home to hell, essentially. And
So he still may want to suck it at this point.
yes, yeah,
Mm.
he's just a little farmer son, just
Poor little
carrying around at
Madeline.
home. So if I can get him into Ireland, I will consider that a win for this week.
Yes.
Now you're telling an alternative history
Yeah.
because Patrick is or Maywin is a historical figure
Mhm.
that has been um, immortalized in fantasy in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of legend that have grown up around this real person, but you're going to take that legend and up to
Elevate it.
11. You're going to crank it to 11
Yeah.
because you're going to bring dragons in.
Mhm.
How worried are you about maintaining historical accuracy? Anytime you bring a dragon in, kind of all bets are off. You could do anything you want. I'm trying to remember what author said. I heard this a long time ago. He said that if you want to write in a genre that you don't know anything about, just introduce a unicorn, um, because then it's fantasy and it could be anything you want. So he wanted to write a western, but he was afraid he didn't know enough about the the technical aspects of writing a western, and
Mhm.
so he just brought a unicorn in, and then he could do anything he wanted to. So it does that kind of hold up with dragons as well?
I was really worried at first when we started this whole thing. I was like, okay, I need to ground it a little bit. And then a couple weeks ago, I was like, no, I don't. I don't have to do that if I don't want to. If I want St. Patrick to ride a unicorn into battle with a banshee and a werewolf to fight a dragon, I am allowed to do that. And if I use an historical figure's name from 2,000 years ago, I think he'll be okay with me
Hmm.
twisting it a little bit. So I'm not too worried about it. There are some like historical callbacks I'm gonna add just because I feel like it would be cool for the story. But I'm not really too focused on making it like a one-to-one
Yeah.
literal thing. Um, I had a point that just lost me. It's too brain for you though. Yeah.
Lauren, in your fantasy world, are there certain rules that you are having to abide by? I know this is a previously created world, so is it just the rules of the previously created world? Are there certain restraints that you are putting on your story and your character that are you making rules for yourself that you have to abide by?
Yeah, I want this book to explore more of what's already been laid out. There are already characters, there's already species and villains. There's already other worlds through portals that are hinted at in book one, two, and three. And I enjoy seeing what those worlds are like. If we're gonna meet elves, I want to know about their culture, what eating their food is like, what being in their midst is like. Um, we've already met this like wicked evil hut, right, with the witch that is supposedly killed in book one.
Right.
But there's mysteries around that hut, so I want to kind of explore those. So in that way, it puts limitations on because it's like this is the sandbox I want to play in, but other people created it, so I need to figure out what they put inside because my readers know. They really know. They're good. But I also want to explore them more, and that's where my imagination kind of is able to add to what's already there.
Gotcha.
Did anyone else hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know what it was, but it
Yeah.
just my earbud just started ringing. Um, the I think I mentioned last week that the book I'm writing takes place in 1994. And I did decide to do a fictionalized town, but that is reminiscent of a lot of things. So 1994, I'm writing a murder mystery and I want to minimize the internet and cell phones at
Mm-hmm.
this point. There are no cell phones in this book. Uh, but I did write a whole scene today where my main character, Stu, sits down at his computer and dials up to AOL and
Oh,
goes through all of the modem handshaking and
that's
all of that, and
hilarious.
it was so fun. I really wanted to anchor into this time and really kind of dislodge the notion that so many things can be fixed by pulling out your cell phone and just googling something, or pulling up your Google Maps and seeing where all of your friends are. And that has it is opening up so many possibilities, because we're gonna have to think through these problems and not
Hey,
just solve them with technology.
can you run that scene again later on in the book when they're under a time crunch? Because that would be hilarious. Like, I don't know what the time crunch is involving, but just like waiting for
I love that.
waiting, waiting,
That actually would be funny,
waiting.
that anytime they're really under a crunch, that
Yeah,
they have to log into AOL for
it just wait.
oh, that's gonna be so
Oh
much
my.
fun.
Or
So
what if
much
he's
fun.
got his notes on his Microsoft Word doc and Microsoft crashes?
Oh,
That's
that would
not,
be
that's just painful. Maybe that's just
but it's
torturing the
true.
reader. But
But
it's so
it's
true. It's
it's
so
so
true.
true. It's so, especially in 1994,
Mm.
Word was still running in DOS at the time. Anyway, um I have so far in my book, there is a dead body, but no one knows it yet.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
over the next couple of days, I'm going to introduce the dead body, and then, you know, this little town goes into upheaval because dead bodies don't just typically show up here, but they do now.
Ooh.
So, we got the
Didn't,
whole Jessica Fletcher thing from Murder She Wrote, where idyllic little town, but bodies start stacking up, and
yeah, didn't you
who's
say on
really to
Facebook
blame?
like 5 or 6 people have already died? Something like that?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not saying there might be a little cult activity going on. Who knows? We'll see. Um,
Let the
but
bodies hit the ground.
let the bodies hit the ground. Yeah. Um, i- is there a particular time of day that y'all have to show up to write? Some people are like, I have to show up at 8 a.m. every morning. I have to have my computer only at my desk, and all of the things have to be perfectly in order. Or are y'all like that at all?
Mm, 5 to 6 p.m. has been working for me in the evening mostly. That's not a hard fast thing. Yesterday I wrote 2,000 words at 2 p.m. So it's really just a matter of what I'm doing that day, what direction my day takes me. Um, I do enjoy the evening writing though.
Yeah.
It's nice and quiet. It's pretty chill. Nothing going on. It's a nice headspace. The sun's going down earlier, so it feels more like nighttime, like that calming. Just a good way to end the day for me. That may not work for everybody, but
I'm trying to build an early morning habit, like a first
Yeah.
thing in the morning. Don't do anything, just kind of roll out of bed and do it. Since I haven't started writing and I'm still plotting, I've been putting that into editing mode. But in the past, when I wrote in the morning first thing, I found that a lot of the, I don't know, the creativity that's kind of in your brain from sleeping and dreaming and
Right.
stuff is still sort of latent there. So I want to kind of capture those chemicals and kind of get at it. It helped in the
I,
past, and I'm hoping to do it again.
I love the idea of that. And I think all the time, oh, I'm going to be an early morning writer for the exact reasons that you just said. Um, but my neuroses won't let me.
Hmm.
I'm the kind of person that I cannot have unread email in
Oh
my
yeah.
inbox. I cannot have a number by my inbox. I have to go through and then, you know, um, then there's a number of work things that have to be done first thing in the morning to keep the whole, dabble marketing train, on the tracks. And and I I want to write first thing in the morning, but I have to check these things off because I'm a weirdo. And then later in the day, I feel like I've earned my writing time because
Mm,
I, I don't know, I'm weird like that. And we'll see what the weekends look like
yeah.
when those things aren't necessarily, you know, um uh at top of mind, but we'll see. That it's going to be interesting to see if I can retrain my neurotic habits to allow that to happen in the morning.
Yeah, it's like
We'll see.
whatever works for you, do
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah, the point is no, there is no perfect time in the morning. To It's whatever wherever you feel free, I think is the perfect time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
except for the days where you just have to go into a closet and bang out some words.
Yeah. I will tell you that for me, if I get to writing at the end of the day, and I'm kind of a procrastinator, right? So I keep on pushing it off. But the whole time I'm pushing it off, I'm thinking that this is something I need to do. And then once you get in those few words, then you feel like, oh, if I've done the thing, I've accomplished that big goal that I really wanted to do. And then you can focus on other things. So I don't know.
Well, Lauren, you work your day job as an editor, and Ian,
Yes.
your day job as a teacher, and my day job is working for Dabble, and so we all three kind of work around stories all the time. Um, do you ever? Uh, does it ever get in the way of your creativity, like looking at other people's work all the time? Does that ever make you just feel like, I'm just I'm I don't have it today. I don't want to look at any more words today. Does that ever happen to you?
Sometimes, but then I just go like really cocky and say, I could do that better.
Ah,
Uh, that's
Yeah.
one of my motivators. I have to have that lens because if I'm gonna be in a career where I'm constantly exposed to other people's craft, I'm I can choose to be self-deprecating and unsure of myself, or I can be like, okay, I've been doing this for long enough. It's time for me to flex my muscles and see what I can do, what I can contribute to the creative world. So, it was daunting at first, but I think I've gotten over that.
yeah. The books you're reading were written by was for me as an English teacher anyway. The books that I was teaching were written by Charles Dickens, Tolkien, um, Hawthorne. They're written by some of the greatest. Dostoevsky out there. He's so good. You can't call them up. The books I'm reading now, I can email Nick, Jason, Walt, Doc Spears, and they'll just tell me, right. Just right.
Yeah.
So they'll give me, the kick in the pants that I need, and they'll also tell me to have fun. So those two things, just right and have fun.
Do you
That's
ever
it.
read something and go, "Oh, I totally would have done this a completely different way," and that starts the what if game?
Mhm.
Not so much, but more I'll see something cool that they did, and then that
Yeah.
will give me an idea of something cool that I want to do too. Or I like that the way the characters have like a rapport and jokes back and forth. Or I like the way that there was some kind of surprise twist. And I'm like, that's what I want to do. More of that. Let's do more of that. And I do that when I read Jim Butcher too. Take notes of, oh, this was fun. This is fun, and I kind of throw that into my pile of fun things that I want to experiment with too.
Speaking of Jim Butcher, I got an arc of his son's book, who he's
Oh,
publishing as James Butcher, and it's urban fantasy as well. And has anybody read any? I'm I'm gonna get into it this week, and
hmm.
it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
So I
Next
haven't.
week, can we ask you about that? See how you liked it?
Yeah, yeah,
Or the
do
week
that.
after, whenever you get to it, like I'd want to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I'll put some thoughts together on it. So that should be especially could you imagine growing up in that shadow and then becoming um not only just an author but an urban fantasy author? That, you know, talk about influences. That should be interesting to see.
Mm.
But anyway, um well, guys, that's our hour for today. Happy writing, everyone. It's we're in the thick of it now. We'll meet again here next Wednesday and see how our first full week has gone. And we might have uh, some story snags to
Hmm.
try to help each other unravel. So I'm going to be making notes of any troublesome scenes or characters that I've run into, and maybe do a little workshopping with the group. So that should be fun.
So we can check in with our trouble and like help bounce ideas off each other.
Exactly. Exactly. That should be
Yeah.
fun. Oh, go ahead.
There was a question from the audience. Someone was
Yeah.
asking about that picture behind me. That
Yes.
is Morning Star by William Harrison, and it's from a photo from the early 1900s. And that he sketched that. That is charcoal pencil.
You're
Um,
kidding.
it's the work is beautiful. Like
Oh,
if you
wow.
get close, the beadwork and her hair, just the textures are amazing. But yeah, William Harrison, Morning Star. And actually, that was payment for an editing project he did. We did like a trade.
I love it. That is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
That is amazing. Um, Also, just a programming note. Um, we had talked about doing these writing challenges every quarter. We do a 60-day writing challenge, take a month off, and then start another one up. And I had an idea I was kicking around with the Dabble folks yesterday. What if in January, and this is just something for folks to think about, and if you're interested, let me know. What if in January, instead of kicking off another write a novel with Dabble in 60 days, what if we do a rewrite your novel uh, challenge where, you know, we have an existing first draft, and whatever words don't fit into November, you know, maybe we spill over into December and kind of finish up that first draft. And then in January, we tackle revisions and what it's like to, you know, take a new look at that book and go through the editing process and, you know, bring that into a workable draft. It's
I
something
think
we're kicking around, but if folks are interested in that, I think we may do that.
I'm interested right now.
Okay. All right, great. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Next week, hopefully, Amy and Josh will be back on our panel, and happy writing.
Thanks, Hake. This was fun. Good night,
See you.
guys.